You have the hots for Flameshock. I got
Dude, I love it. Like, Flameshock is literally, I swear, once they fix it, Ellie will be the most fun class in the whole game.
Thanks for joining. I know you are the #1 ranked Ellie in the world right now. I looked at your rating. If we compare it on NA to EU, you are the #1 ranked Ellie, which is pretty impressive. And I know you're playing with Space Station Gaming in the AWCs. You've been competing with what I could find up, since 2015, which I believe is WAD. And I was able to find some clips of you, Chanimal, and Sea-Doo in the GCD tournaments. And I'll tell you, D Machine is looking pretty young in those ones. So it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And then I saw, I did a little bit more digging and saw your tournament wins, seeing that. And I'm not sure if everyone knows this, and especially people that are picking up the game right now, at how many times you've been competing in in lands and tournament level where there's like big prize pools, and you look at the players there, and you've been there for a very long time. And that's one thing about WoW is that new players are coming all the time, new X packs and everything, but you're one of the OGs that has been around for a really long time. And so I appreciate you being here. And then last, and probably the thing I'm most jealous about, is your hair and your beard. Man, you've maintained that for quite some time, and I have to say that is I'm pretty envious of that. So.
I appreciate it, dude. It's even it's pretty funny because I've actually haven't cut it since then either. And another year. Hey. My beard game is next level right now.
Jeez.
I'm super proud of it. I kind of feel like getting a haircut every other day, but
yeah, I saw your picture on the AWC, like one of the promo pictures, and you're just looking good, man. You're putting everyone else to shame. That's all I'm gonna say. But,
I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, but yeah, before we get into some of the Shadowlands Ellie stuff, I want to talk about a little bit about kind of where you got started with WoW. I know that there's some articles out there and some stuff other people have written about you watching your neighbor play, and that kind of pulled you in and stuff like that. But I guess my question is, what game were you playing before WoW? When your neighbor was playing WoW, what were you doing?
I've always been like Blizzard games type thing. So I played like Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne, but I always played like custom games. So I played like Dota and like Line Tower Wars, and then I started getting into Diablo. And I've been playing like Diablo style games my entire life. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Which is your favorite Diablo game, if you had to pick?
Oh, definitely Diablo 2.
Yes.
LOD expansion.
Yeah, my buddy, we were hoping that there was going to be some remake or like remastered or something done with Diablo 2. My buddy was telling me all about it because I never played it at the time. I'm not even sure what I was playing then, but that's awesome. Yeah. So and the other thing I noticed is that you were on Warrior in those tournaments, like 2015 and earlier, right? Is that the first class you picked up? And what kind of brought you to Warrior first?
Well, I actually started playing this game, and my first character I ever made was an enhanced shaman, actually. But I didn't get it max level, and I got Rogue my first max level. But my first character I really tried to PvP on was was Warrior. And my first real season I ever tried to do anything serious, I actually ended up getting rank 1 back in Wrathful Lich King.
So yeah, that's like a really
long time ago.
Yeah, wow, that's insane. Okay, fair enough. And how did you end up getting into Shaman after that when you were kind of more focused on PvP?
I actually used to watch a streamer named Zeepai. He's like the EU Ellie King, and I used to watch him all the time in WoD, like towards the end of the expansion, I'd say. And after a while, I was just like, man, this looks like so much fun. I feel like I could do this too. And so I just started playing it. And ever since then, it's been my love, man. It's like literally my favorite thing in this game to play.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you there. I wanted to knock people off cliffs with Thunderstorm. That was my main motivator because I was playing Warrior back in Wrath at a little bit lower tier than you. But that's what would happen to me all the time. And for some reason, I always switched classes to classes that that beat me. So first I was a Warlock, and then I went to Rogue because Rogues shit on me, and then I went to Warrior because Warriors shit on Rogues, and then I went to Ele Shaman so I could knock people off. But yeah, similar story. But that's really cool. And so I guess kind of jumping into the meat of this. I know you put up that PvP post on the forums about Ellie, but coming from BFA and competing at the highest levels in the game as Ellie, what do you think is changing from BFA to Shadowlands that's going to kind of change Ellie? Because I know I watched your streams and you love the fact that Lava Burst is back, but is there anything else that you think they changed? Because like on paper, the only thing that I really saw was that they changed like some of the spell damage and they had Echoing Shock, a few things. But what was it to you that like made it seem like it's going to be in a better spot potentially?
I think like the overall feel of Ellie and BFA is like a defensive caster where you just like plant at a pillar, and most of the time you're just there to like protect your healer and like kind of like punish the other team for overextending and whatnot. So like going from that into Shadowlands, like Shadowlands makes Ellie feel like a lot more offensive to me, where you're constantly trying to set up huge burst potential with Stormkeepers or Echoing Shock or big Ascendance procs or Primordial Wave. Like there's just so much more you can do with your offense in Shadowlands. So I feel like Ellie is going to have that more, or that role more in terms of compositions and whatnot, which is just like, it's just more fun, you know, like nobody wants to sit at a pillar all game and do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like, no one really wants to go to deep dampening. I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone
it's
wants
fun when
to.
you get there, but like the whole process of getting there is like not fun.
Right. And with that being said, talking about setting up, one of the big themes on your posts on the forums is about Flameshock, and you talk about reducing the cooldown or having dispel protection. So like, why do you think that that's so important for Ellie? And like, why, like that was like the number one thing, and I've heard it from a lot of people as well. But like, what makes you like, if they just keep dispelling, like where does it leave you?
Well, it's in a really weird spot right now. Ever since BFA came out and they made the change to have it be a longer cooldown, like we kind of got spoiled in Legion because we actually got to see what it felt like to not have a cooldown on it and just spread it and constantly have that like ability to just spam lava bursts like every other global, and it felt amazing. Like that felt like how Ellie should be played all the time, and in my opinion was like the best iteration of Ellie ever was in Legion. So I think it's a little bit of because of that, but also it's just there's times in Shadowlands, especially because lava burst is such a huge part of your damage now, like huge part, that if people are dispelling your flame shocks and using like feign death or cloak or all these other things to kind of like counter your flame shock uptime, you're kind of in a spot where if you don't have Stormkeeper up and you don't have like lasso up, like you don't really have anything to do, like, and you feel kind of like stuck. And so it feels like it's a necessary kind of change for Ellie to feel fluid. And that's like literally the only thing I'm worried about with Shadowlands, is that if there's no change to that, like sometimes it'll be extremely fun, and then sometimes when teams kind of like shut you down in that aspect, it's going to be super frustrating.
Yeah, I've heard you on your stream just going like, "This is so much fun! This is so much fun!" And that's like when it's like lining up and stuff. And it's not even when you're using the meme Ascendant setup. It's like when you just get the fluid procs, like you can tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When every global is just going off, and everything just like flows into each other, it just feels amazing.
Yeah. Hard casting lightning bolts is like this, like my least favorite thing, right?
Yeah.
And so do you think that there's a chance they could do something in the PvP talents, like do a dispel protection type thing?
Oh yeah, I've heard so many good ideas of being like thrown out on in terms of like just giving us some kind of like buff when it gets dispelled, or something like I had an idea from Oz. He's another really good Ellie Shaman on NA, where he basically posted something as a response to mine, and he said that we should get something like, when Flameshock is dispelled, we get like an ineffable truth kind of proc on ourselves that makes our Flameshock recharge faster. And something like that would just be so, it's not like game changing by any means, but it's definitely like it helps us kind of like balance that disparity between not having any Flameshocks out and having full Flameshocks out,
Yeah. And yeah, and I'm really hoping that they do change the PvP talents. How do you feel about the PvP talents now? Do you think that do you think they have to be changed? Do you think they're like in an okay place? What's your kind of feeling? Because I'm personally worried that they're not going to make many changes to PvP talents, and that to me would be a tragedy. I feel like that could be kind of boring. How do you kind of think about it?
I agree 100%. I feel like it is literally a tragedy in many cases for many classes, because Blizzard is more than capable of coming up with super cool and like innovative stuff to implement into the game. Like for example, if you look at Affliction Warlock, they just got an honor talent that makes like their periodic dots do like 30% more, and it costs soul shards. So it kind of like plays into that instant dot style and helps them out tremendously in PvP. And like something like that just is implemented as an honor talent and completely fixes the class in a lot of aspects, you know? And so we have so many talents in our honor talents that have not only become stale, but some are basically mandatory. And then some just feel like, where am I ever going to use this? You know, like Elemental Attunement, for example, for Ellie, like I just don't see like the value of having maximum Maelstrom. You know, when Lava Burst is doing so much damage and Stormkeeper is doing so much damage, like you don't really want to pull up your Maelstrom to get double Earthshock a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. And do you think that another thing in terms of offensives and kind of the new factor in PvP and Shadowlands will be legendaries? Do you think that that's a good addition to PvP?
Yeah, I think it's really fun. Like I think some of the legendaries are super enjoyable. Like the Resurgence legendary that like gives you a Lava Surge proc when you Earthshock or LE Blast, like feels awesome. Like it's really really fun to use, you know. And the Ascendance one is like obviously like probably causing some issues because Ascendance as itself is kind of like in a really weird spot right now, I would say,
Yeah.
with Primordial Wave especially. But like those two legendaries are super fun, you know?
Yeah.
And they feel like more of what talent should be, in my opinion. Like when I look at the talent tree and I see like Primal Elementalist and Echo of the Elements and stuff, like those things seem like more of like a baseline type of design
Right.
that would just make the class feel good. And then if we had these legendaries as like a talent choice in the last tier or something, like that would be way more exciting to me, you know?
Yeah, that's a really
But
interesting. That's a really interesting point, you know, because right now the legendaries are tied to gear, but yeah, you're almost making it sound like if we had a fourth option for a PvP talent and just pick your one of your legendary affixes. Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting.
perfect. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. And one other thing we were talking a lot about offensives, and obviously you're seeing the game at the top end, right? You're I mean like 3200. You're competing at AWCs and all of that. One of the big complaints that I've been hearing all the time is defensives, and I don't mean like that the complaint's not warranted or anything, but what is your take on Ellie and their defensives, and what do you think that they should have added to them? So and I know Primal Elementalist is going to come up in this, but yeah.
Well, there's like it ultimately just depends on like Blizzard's vision of how Ellie should be played defensively, because like a lot of different classes have been gaining more like self healing. Like monks, for example, they got like reverse harm as an honor talent, which just makes them super self sufficient. And like shadow priests have like fade and have vampiric embrace to have just like give them instant cast healing basically. And while we did get like healing stream, I just like, you know, because you've been playing beta, that like the pacing of games is so much faster.
Yeah.
So like having random ticks for 700 isn't gonna like necessarily contribute to you surviving a big go from like a CC comp like Rogue Mage or something, you know. So
Right.
I almost feel like Ellie at this point just needs a little bit more damage reduction. Like maybe they could bake in some damage reduction to Lightning Shield, and there still is counterplay because it can be purged off, you know. So
Right.
like something like that to Ellie and enhance, but also like I said in my post, like Primal Elementalist, while it's not necessarily, in my opinion, the greatest design, because you have to press a button and then press another button, and you can't have both your elementals out at once. It does offer like another layer of defense and utility with the stun too,
Yeah.
which I think is like pretty much in the foundation of Ellie at this point to survive many different like situations. So like just having that functionality baseline would just go so far for Ellie and enhance. But for me, I would say like something more along the lines of I don't even know, like just damage reduction, because I know when Ellie and enhance were at their peak in terms of viability and fun, like they had that, you know, they had the damage reduction and just a little bit more sturdiness to them, so they could be out in the middle and they didn't have to sit next to a pillar all the time and play that kind of game. But
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting how how you kind of said it too. It's like how they should be played. Do you think that that's a tip for people trying to? Because I also get a lot of questions about like Ellie and twos and and threes. How do I stay alive? I'm just getting rammed by DH Warrior or whatever it is. Do you think it's kind of playstyle, positioning, and like a certain way to play the class unique to other classes that would make a kind of a defensive difference?
Yeah, I mean, utilizing Thunderstorm is just like the biggest thing ever versus almost everything on certain maps, especially like when you play against a melee cleave, and if you can punish them with thunderstorms and then stun them at the right times. I think that's like a big aspect of Ellie now, is like getting your lassos off at the right time and making sure they're not getting interrupted, or getting a double stun with your primal elementalist with your earth Ellie and doing a lasso at the same time, and then thunderstorming at the end of that. Like all of these things kind of like play into your defense and are kind of like they're a little bit more intricate than other classes. It's not like a shadow priest that can just press fade and they're fine.
Right.
Like you have to kind of like think about it a little bit more and position yourself in ways that like allow you to manipulate that kind of thing. But I mean, to me, that's fun. Like I enjoy that. It kind of makes me think a little bit more, but I do still wish that we had more like reaction buttons as Ellie. Like Nature's Guardian, for example, is awesome, but I think it should be baseline, and there should be some other kind of like
right
thing that we could like either heal ourselves as like a renewal type thing from Druid, or maybe like some kind of stone skin totem or something to reduce damage incoming. Like something like that would go a long ways for Ellie at this point.
Yeah.
And enhance.
Yeah. I'll bring up enhance.
Especially in this pacing of the game too, because like just two walls isn't gonna cut it, anymore.
Right.
When every other class has immunities and super high damage reduction things.
Good point. Yeah, and to that point, do you think the pace? What do you think about the pacing of the beta arenas? Like, obviously, the balancing. I every day I like look and I'm like, did they tune anything? And usually the answer is no, unless like Deathbolt. I think they did a hot fix for so it doesn't one shot you. But and they haven't done anything to send us. Do you think that we're going to see this pacing into the first season of the game in Shadowlands?
I really hope so, because this is exactly how I imagine the game to be played, at like a fun level, but also super competitive. Because as of right now, like all the different style of comps work. Like there's rot style, there's CC based, there's like setup based. Everything is kind of working, but there are definitely outliers. Like there's certain classes that are obviously like doing way too much damage, but overall, I'd say the pacing is 10 times better than BFA.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because that's one thing about like, I wasn't kind of following this in early BFA, how their tuning of the beta went into the real first season. But yeah, that makes sense. So that makes sense, and I think we hit on the offensives, we hit on the defensives. I'll ask you and this is another question that I'm sure you get all the time, because everyone knows they're going to have to make this choice of covenants. Which covenant do you think that you're going to go?
I think I'm gonna go Necrolord right now, because Primordial Wave is just like the most fun thing ever. Like there's just something so satisfying about seeing like 3 lava bursts fly out in all directions,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. Like it's the same thing with Descendants. Like it's just so satisfying to see that happen. But the Chain Harvest one, I think which one is that? Ventir?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that one's like pretty interesting too. It seems like it has some nice potential, but I mean, all of them seem like they have a spot. Like I haven't really looked at Nightfade too much, but like the Kyrian one looks like interesting for dungeons and stuff. But in terms of PvP, like having another Flameshock button is just like king to me, So Primordial Wave is just the way to go.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know that you probably get that question all the time as well. So a few more questions for you. Number one, and this is been a hot topic, PvP gearing. What is your take on PvP gearing? Do you think that the vendor needs to be chock full of every option? Do you think that that PvE trinkets should be involved? What's your take on the PvP gearing?
So I actually got this idea from somebody in my chat, I think, but it was kind of developed a little bit more. Like I thought about it a little bit more, but I think PvP gearing should be completely brand new, in the sense that the same way that we create our legendaries right now, where we get to pick the base of it and then we get to pick the stats on it. I feel like something like that should be implemented for PvP, where you can basically build your item from ground up and then still have the opportunity to reforge it. Maybe they could do something different, like you reforge it through actual wins and not currency or something. Like it gradually increases the better you play and like the more times you win. But to me, I feel like that just offers us a lot more control over our items as well, and
Yeah.
like even like reforging would be amazing too. Like that would just change everything as well. But I mean, in terms of like just having the items on the vendor, it's kind of hard to say because it needs to have like relevance in terms of stats, but it can't be too good because then like PvEers will feel compelled to be
Yeah.
forced to do it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a hard thing to figure out. But that's what comes back to like just picking like crafting your own PvP item, and maybe it can be like a little bit lower item level, but it'll have some kind of like PvP bonus, like
Yeah.
wear
Yeah.
5 items and have your Flameshock reduced by 2 seconds or something. It's
Whoa.
like,
You have the hots for Flameshock. I got
dude, I love it. Like Flameshock is literally, I swear, once they fix it, Ellie will be the most fun class in the whole game. It already is like in my opinion, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the one thing it needs.
Yeah, to just take it there. I hear you. I hear you. Okay, that makes sense. And what comps are you excited to play going into Shadowlands based on how things currently are? Do you think, like as you mentioned, Flameshock being such a critical element, and when it gets dispelled, you're in trouble. Do you think that having some type of like dispel coverage from a UA lock or something like that could help, or what comps are you interested in?
Yeah, like most of the time it seems like the comps that help out with your Flameshock protection are like obviously Affliction Lock, but also comps that can like kill healers. So for example, if I play with a hunter or something, like there's sometimes where he can like either CC the healer out for 8 seconds, or he can just go the healer, and the healer is using the globals to save themselves, so they don't have time to like have that same maintenance of trying to keep off your flame shocks on everybody. So comps like that I think are gonna be the most fun for me. But the thing that I'm looking forward to most is like the Ellie Destro, Ellie Affliction, the Thundercleave, the Ellie
Okay.
Windwalker. Just like the go-to Ellie comps, I would say, for the last couple years.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows what could happen too? Like Boomkins could be insane again. Like Ellie Shadow Priest could be really good. Like Ellie's one of those classes like Warrior and like Rogue and Windwalker that when they're really good, they kind of work with everything.
Yeah.
Like there's no downside to playing with an Ellie because they just offer really good damage, really good utility. The only downside is they can just die sometimes, and Flame Shock can be like completely countered.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, and I think one of the challenges, well, at least I was running into even in BFA, was that when you're looking to either make new partners or new buddies to queue with in arena, right? A lot of times they'll look at Ellie and they'll be like, "But I could just take it Destro." Like, what's your take on that type of competitiveness? I mean, in BFA, I mean, maybe it's different than what it's going to be now because if we're on this kind of a similar playing field in damage, but what's your take on like that type of situation of like finding partners, even if like, let's say Ellie's, let's say Destro's number one caster, like what would you like give people like a tip to how to like find people to play with, even if you're playing a spec that's maybe not like tier 1, like in BFA, for example? Because obviously you're making it happen with 3,200 rating. It's not bad, but how do you kind of pierce that difference?
I kind of have like a different take on like finding partners because I've been playing forever, like I've been playing from the ground up. So my priority has always been find people that you enjoy playing with instead of trying to figure out how to play with people who will respect your character or appreciate it and like will continue to play with you even though you guys don't always do well, like because the natural progression of playing with people that you enjoy to play with, like if you're good and you like actually put the time in to like get better as a person and get better as a player all the time, that's going to rub off on those other people too, and you're going to be able to help them out with different perspectives and they might help you out as well. So you can kind of bounce off each other. So my priority has always been just find good friends, try to make friends instead of trying to find partners.
That's good. I like that. Very positive attitude too. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
2 more questions. Number 1, if Ellie's were asking like, how do I get better at Ellie, or how do I like, what are like the few tips you could give to someone that's maybe picking up Ellie for the first time, or they're trying to improve themselves? Like, how would you recommend people to improve themselves as being an Ellie player?
I think there's like 3 foundations to almost all classes, but like especially Ele, I think the biggest foundation is to make sure that you're flame shocking off cooldown on every target that you possibly can, even if you're about to burst and everything. Like, it's really, really important you try to maintain flame shocks because you can fall behind really quickly. But also, like, getting a lava burst proc right as you're throwing your stormkeeper out or something will help it tremendously. You know, like, you'll do way more damage, and this will apply in PvE as well. Like, you constantly want to be trying to maintain as much as you can, but then also, like, while you're doing that, positioning is a huge deal as Ele. Like, being able to get in sheer range for the opposite healer, or make sure that you're able to support your healer with grounding and be in range of them. Or maybe you see like the enemy teams kind of pushing in a little bit, and you can kind of like punish them for overextending with some thunderstorm action. You know, like all of these things kind of play into positioning. So paying attention to that is like key. But that's all going to tie back into kind of how smooth you are at doing damage. So like literally the number one thing is just learn how to do your damage, but also learn how to do it without looking down. You know, like you want to look up when you play.
Right.
Like, the only time you want to look down is like maybe when you get CS'd, or when you are stuck in a sheep or a kidney, or like nothing's really happening, you know, like, you know, you're going to have to purge for 3 globals in a row or something, you know?
Right.
That way you can pay attention to everything else that's happening. And the best way, and the coolest thing about that is like, you can do that through dungeons. You know, you can do that through world questing. You can do that through everything. You just have to train your mind to kind of not do that, you know?
Right. And getting comfortable with it. That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And yeah, paying attention to the bigger picture that's going on. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Just growing your awareness constantly, and just like, if you feel yourself like you're lacking at certain things, like just work on it, you know? Like put in a little bit more effort to like pay attention to those kind of things instead of the other stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm sure people will appreciate that for sure. And and thanks for that. So I guess one last question for you. Well, I guess 2 questions. Okay. What is your favorite color, and are you a big or little spoon?
I would say blue is my favorite color.
All right.
And big spoon.
All right. Okay. All right. Cool. No, I appreciate it. No, yeah, those are important questions. But no,
super important.
Yeah, you gotta, I'm sure one of your teammates, the little spoon, works out. So it's gonna be good. But hey, I appreciate you chatting. This has been really awesome to talk with you, and I will definitely be putting your Twitch links and everything down below the video. Definitely check you out, and as well as Space Station Gaming. I hope you guys keep going and do really goodly. But hey, appreciate it. Thanks, man. Big shout out to Smexxin for doing this with me. Make sure to check out his Twitch stream. The link is down below. Go follow him. He's insane. And we will see you in the next one. Thank you guys so much. Take care.